G'day folks. Perfect timing here. There's some construction going on next door, so there's going to be some noise, but here we go. Dr. Karl Kruszelnicki I'm a big fan of his. For international people, he's probably our answer to Australia's answer to like someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of guy. He's like really into science and makes it accessible and cool. And I've been listening to Dr. Karl's Science Hour on Triple J for probably 25 years. Has it been on that long? It's been a long time anyway, and he's a great guy. I've read his books, and I'm a big fan. He does this talkback Science Hour every week on Triple J, which is a great radio station, and people get to ring in and ask him various science questions. So I listen most weeks, not every week, but I try my best to listen as often as I can because it's a great show. Now, I was excited this week when I heard that he was going to be doing a nutrition science hour, and that was with Professor PhD Dr Clare Collins. Clare Collins, let me just double check I got the name right. Yeah, Clare Collins. So I was excited about that, but I missed it. I didn't get to listen to the show. But then I was even more excited when somebody messaged me to let me know that they spoke about me on the show. So naturally, I went to listen to the show, and I was a little bit disappointed, to be honest. So here we are. Let's listen and see what they've got to say.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
We're going to go now to Adelaide with Shani, who has a question about my favourite vegetable. Shani,
my
what have you got?
favourite vegetable too.
Hey, so I met a guy recently and he ate only potatoes for about 6 months to help with his food addiction.
Okay, I'm going to assume that was me. I was in Adelaide recently. I gave a talk, and yeah, I'm assuming that I met this person whose name I've already forgotten. I'm sorry. At the talk that I gave in Adelaide. There was a year that I did it for, obviously, but she said 6 months, so what much of a muchness. Anyway, it doesn't really matter if she's talking about me or not. The point of the story here is about potatoes. They're talking about a potato-only diet for food addiction. I'm glad she mentioned that. And yeah, whether it's me or someone else doesn't particularly matter, but I feel like it was probably me because there's not many people around that have done this. All right, here we go.
And the only thing he took is like B12 supplements. So
Yep,
I was
supplement
wondering
B12.
why he was able to do that, and yeah, just why are potatoes so good?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, you can ask the Irish about the potatoes, but, you know, in the potato famine, many of them did still starve when the potatoes were wiped out. But
yeah, just be clear on that many Irish did starve in the potato famine. That's because there was a lack of potatoes. That's because the potato blight wiped out the potato crops and people died from starvation. That wasn't a potato-related problem. It was a lack of potato-related problem. Keep going.
potatoes are close to a perfect food, but not quite. When you're eating a huge amount, the tiny amount of vitamin C in them.
All right, when you're eating a huge amount, I didn't eat a huge amount. I ate just what I needed to eat. I didn't go crazy with it. I ended up eating about 3.5 kilos of potatoes per day. I'm 6'5", big build guy. That's not a huge amount of food for someone like me. And you know, the recommended daily caloric intake for the average male is around 2,500 calories. So I've just plugged into Chronometer. Potatoes, 3.5 kilos of potatoes, that gives me 2,660 calories. So it's not crazy huge numbers, but also not starving. You know, I'm getting enough that I need. Now she just mentioned there the tiny amounts of vitamin C. So that's the first thing I'm gonna hit on. If we look in Chronometer, I don't know how well you can see that, but there it is. That's the highlighted targets. So you will notice that vitamin C, which is here, I'm getting 467% of my daily vitamin C requirements. 467%, that's not a tiny amount of vitamin C. All right, that is not tiny. That's a lot of vitamin C. More than 4.5 times the daily requirement if I'm eating only potatoes. So there we go. Keep going. Thanks, Professor Clare Collins, wasn't it? Yep.
The small amounts of protein, your body...
Right, we can argue about protein, small amounts of protein. There's 6% protein, 6 to 8%, depending on the kind of potato you get. So, my protein intake was 56 grams per day at 3.5 kilos of potatoes per day. That's... I should actually add that I was eating sweet potato as well, which changes things, but I'm assuming they don't know that, so I'm going with only potato for this. Only potato gives you 56 grams of protein, which obviously this is a point of contention. I would argue that's enough, and I think the literature backs me up that that's enough. Dr. Collins disagrees. Okay, we can agree to disagree on that. Move on.
They will digest and use those. What the main nutrient that potatoes lack is fatty acids. So if you put a little bit of margarine on there to get the longer chain saturated fats or olive oil, you can certainly get most of your nutrients.
This is another point of contention that we could debate on. I would argue that for me at least, again, they don't know, I'm sure they don't know exactly my position, or if it's not me they're talking about, they don't know exactly what's going on there. But number one, I would argue that if you're overweight when you're doing this, then you've got plenty of fatty acids stored in your body. You don't need to worry about taking in extra fatty acids because it's there stored on your body ready to use, which that was my case. Second point is that it's debatable whether these actually do have enough fatty acids. There is a lot of literature to argue that it's the ratios of omegas that you get is more important than the amount. That's a debatable concept, but either way, I would argue that if you get down to, if you're eating potatoes and you're at a very lean weight, then okay, add in some fatty acids, put some flaxseed in your mash or whatever, and I wouldn't add in olive oil or margarine like she was talking about. I'd be going for flax seeds and walnuts and things like that to get it from a much more healthy source. But anyway, another point of contention, which I'm happy to agree to disagree on.
12 though is the only one that's found in animal foods. You have a store, so if he hadn't have started his B12 supplement straight away, he would have lasted for a little while. But vitamin B12, you need that to make red blood cells. Now with iron, and for men, their body iron stores will...
So, B12, yes, supplement it. You don't need to get it from animals. Your supplement's fine. And yeah, sorry, I forgot to pause that. But anyway, they're on to talking about iron now. This is interesting.
Generally mean they'll be able to go for a few months without becoming iron deficient. But I still wonder whether he became iron deficient, which is the step before becoming anemia.
Iron deficiency. Now, she's worried that there's not enough iron in potatoes that I or whoever would do the potato-only diet, Spud Fit Challenge, would get iron deficient. Now, let's go back to chronometer. Look at this, the highlights. Just here, this one here, that's iron. It's filled all the way up that bar. Have a guess how much iron I'm getting. 722% of my daily iron requirements if I eat only potatoes and I eat the right number of calories. 722% of my daily iron requirements. Come on! Why is it so hard for people to get this right? You're a PhD. Why is it so hard for all these experts to get it right? I don't understand. This has happened so many times with experts in the media that, well-educated people. Why can't we just spend 1 minute on Google and see that potatoes have heaps of vitamin C? Potatoes have heaps of iron. To the point where I had blood tests done regularly throughout my year of potatoes, and I have a friend who's a doctor who wasn't my supervising doctor, who was a friend who also happened to be a doctor. And after one set of blood tests I got, he rang me up and said, "Hey, are you taking an iron supplement?" Because he saw my blood test and noticed that my iron levels had gone up. And he thought I might have been supplementing, and I wasn't. It was just potatoes. My iron levels went up. I wasn't even close to deficient. When I got to the end of the year, my doctor, Dr Mackay, who was supervising me, he said that the oxygen carrying capacity of my blood was not far off the limit where if I was an elite athlete, they would start to suspect me of blood doping. That's how good the oxygen carrying capacity in my blood was, the iron levels in my blood. were excellent. And that's not just because I'm an anomaly. That's because potatoes have plenty of iron. 722% of my daily iron requirements are coming if I eat only potatoes for the day. So this is just so frustrating for me. I just wish people would take the time. Yes, I'm sure Clare Collins is a very knowledgeable dietitian, PhD. Obviously, she knows what she's talking about on a lot of aspects, a lot of food. But yeah, very, very frustrating that Dr. Clare Collins couldn't just take a little bit of time to actually suss out if she's saying the right thing. It doesn't make sense to me. And at the same time, I'm also, I very much respect Dr. Karl because he openly admits when he's not an expert in something, and he always defers to the experts. So that's what he's done here. But at the same time, I wish Dr. Karl would have taken the time to look this up and see that the answers are clearly wrong. It sounds like it's an off-the-cuff sort of situation where people just call in and then the doctors, Dr. Clare and Dr. Karl, just give answers off the cuff, but they don't. I know they don't. They get these in advance and they're able to do a little bit of research, even if it's just during an ad break or during a song. They get the question and then they answer it. But they also get questions before the show, and they tee them up, and so they know what they're going to say. And it's frustrating. It's really disappointing that people continue. Pretty much every expert, like media expert that I've ever heard talk about potatoes, they're pretty much all of them say the same stuff, and it's always wrong, so wrong. Again, there's some stuff that we can debate about and stuff that we can disagree on, and that's okay. We're allowed to disagree on some stuff, but vitamin C and iron, come on, that's so. I think I've spoken enough.
Bottom line advice: don't go on a potato-only diet.
Now, here's some.
Yeah. Bottom line advice: don't go on a potato-only diet. Okay, that's I don't know how to even respond to that. Your advice, your bottom line advice, Dr. Clare, is based on stuff that's wrong. You might want to say that, okay, I think there's not enough protein. I would argue, you think there's not enough protein. I would argue that it's wrong. You think there's not enough fat. I would argue that that's mitigated by having fat stores and blah blah blah. But yeah, just it makes me. Your advice is to not go on a potato-only diet. Fair enough, you're allowed to give that advice, but this just makes me wonder about your advice, because clearly you've blatantly given out the wrong information then, and so why should we take your advice, Dr. Clare? I just don't get it. All right, what has Dr. Karl got to add to this?
Things related to my childhood. Is the skin the best part?
Well, with most vegetables, there certainly is nutrients concentrated in the skin and under the skin, but they're all the way through. So the bigger impact on nutrient intake of vegetables is how you cook them. And most minerals are not destroyed by heat, so calcium, potassium, iron and zinc. But vitamins that are water soluble are C, B vitamins. If you absolutely boil the insides out of them, you will reduce a lot of the vitamins, but you still won't lose them all. Mm-hmm. So cook your veggies, cook those potatoes, steam them rather than deep frying them.
Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. That's my favourite quote from The Lord of the Rings about potatoes, but
Sounds
good to know.
good.
Yeah. We're going to go to Sue now in Churchill.
Oh. So there we go. That's the potato. The last bit I can agree with. Yeah, you don't want to go crazy with cooking them on super high heats and for a super long time, but just cook them, and when they're done, take them out and eat them, and you'll get enough nutrients. You can, the people think that the nutrients are concentrated in the skin, which is not. There are nutrients in the skin, but if you peel them, you're still going to get all your nutrients. So yeah, there's something we can agree on to finish with. Thank you, Dr. Clare. There we have it. So yeah, I guess the moral of the story is that even when you very much respect somebody, including myself, some people watching might have great respect for me. Maybe you're crazy enough to think I know what I'm talking about sometimes, but just don't take experts' word for it. You look things up for yourself, and even a PhD, very well educated, very well respected dietitian, who is a guest on a show of a very well-respected, very well-educated scientist, Dr. Karl, who I still am a big fan of, by the way. This hasn't ruined you for me, Dr. Karl, if you're watching. I still love you. I'm still a fan, but I'm just, we all make mistakes. We all get it wrong from time to time, and unfortunately, Dr. Karl got it wrong, along with Dr. Clare Collins. Or Dr. Karl himself didn't get it wrong. I guess he got it wrong in trusting somebody else who got it wrong on his behalf by being on his show and getting it wrong. So, there you go. I've been, well, not me, but Spud Fit the Potato Diet has been on Dr. Karl's show, and that's pretty cool. And it, whatever. Make of that what you will. All right, if you like this video, then share it, like, subscribe, comment, all of that sort of stuff. There's links and information below if you're interested. Spud up, everyone.